Well, I explained to you the motivation for me to choose a subject like this because I have a 40-year gap in my understanding of Kerala. Whenever I want to stand up and talk about Kerala, anything, politics, education, culture, everything, I realize how much I don't know because of these 40 years. And these 40 years are not the current 40 years of international information and the internet and the flow of information, etc. And those were literally away from home. And whenever I try to catch up with something, I always find that there is a huge gap. And also because before I left, I was in a cocoon. I was a student most of the time, focusing simply on studies, not looking at around the world around me, politics least of all. And then a year in college when I was teaching, again, very protected kind of environment. And I was not thrown into the milieu of Kerala life before I left. So when I came back, the Kerala I found was new in very many ways. And this is what astonished me. And I've been trying to catch up with that knowledge. So in that process, I discovered many things remain undiscovered. But you are a person who has lived here, who has been in the government of Kerala. So I thought an exchange of views between somebody who has these gaps and somebody who has the direct first-hand knowledge of everything in Kerala would be an interesting subject. That is the only reason why I started this. And the first question that haunted me when I came back is, why is it called God's own country? People just keep on repeating, oh, welcome to the God's own country. We are so, and nobody has ever asked, why do you call yourself a God's own country? Which I asked, and I never use this in my own speeches. I never say God's own country because I haven't understood it. Of course, there are many, many theories. It is basically a tourism slogan, as I understand it. Oh, beautiful country, God's own country. I believe it was invented by the New Zealanders, not by us. And somebody simply copied it from the New Zealand literature, tourist literature. But there is more meaning to that being attributed to that. For example, Paramesh, one of the incarnations of Vishnu, Parasurama, threw his axe into the sea, and Kerala was formed because of that. So God's own country, created by God himself. Of course, there's a story behind it. I'm not going to go into that. And the other thing is that this is one
you
place.
Answered your own question now.
Sorry? Sorry?
Please go ahead.
Okay.
I was going to say that you have answered your own question. It was Parashuram who threw the axe in the, that's perhaps why we call it God's own country. And I've got two sources for it. My batchmate, Jay Kumar, was tourism secretary, and he claims credit for it, as well as one of my shishyas, Amitabh Khan, who is CEO of Niti Aayog. He was, I think, tourism director. And I believe he also had something to contribute to the name. But of course, it is God's own country. And speaking of the gods, are there too many gods in Kerala? Are there too many rituals and religious places and too much of...
yes, that's what I discovered when I came back.
What do you think, having been...
There is an explosion of faith in Kerala. All these huge temples and churches and mosques that you see around were not there. And even the rituals were not there. The Attukal, the festival, which is famous all around the world, thousands and lakhs of people come to Trivandrum to it. Nobody ever thought of that for that particular temple. And where you have bigger temples, bigger churches, and therefore maybe somebody who comes to Kerala might think, oh, this is God's own country. But my theory is that this is none of these. This is basically we are escaping our responsibility. God's own country, let God take care of it. That is the attitude that I see. In fact, somebody asked me to write about the Trivandrum golf course. So I said, this is God's own golf course because nobody cuts the grass, nobody cleans the place. But when the rain comes, it gets cleaned up. When the summer comes, it gets warmed up. And then you are able to play without doing anything by human hands. So similarly, I thought that there was a little bit of an escapism here. That is, you don't have to work very hard. After all, this belongs to God. God help us and God will help. And that attitude has got into the minds of Keralites. I don't know whether you agree with that or not.
In a sense, yes. For example, I used to say always, and it comes back to me when you speak about, being laid back, is that you see, Kerala, I believe the word comes from the Kera Vriksha, the coconut tree. Now, the coconut tree is one tree where you plant it, and it's there for a lifetime. Your father planted it, your grandfather planted it. It's there for a lifetime. You fertilize it once in a year, and then it yields every month enough for you to live a very, very nice and happy life. So it makes us laid back, it makes us happy, not lotus eaters really, but it does. So is that also the reason why people say that we are fairly cynical people? We are not only cynical about others, we are cynical, we are self-deprecating. We mock everyone, we mock ourselves. Do you think that is true? And if so, why?
No, we have this habit of, making somebody superhuman when somebody achieves something great. I remember when I was a child, we used to pray to Gandhiji as though he is God. Gandhiji has repeatedly said that he has nothing, he is a but down-to-earth man. But why do you consider Gandhi to be an avatar? Because you cannot accomplish that. You cannot reach that level of perfection. So we think he is God. Then we have no responsibility to rise to his level. He is, so you exclude him. So many times we do that. We create these gods and goddesses, living gods and goddesses of human beings, basically because we want to separate ourselves or make that effort to either emulate them or try to be like them. And instead we say, oh, we are ordinary mortals, but these are gods. So in the whole attitude about Keralites in Kerala, I see that this kind of escapism is also part of this God's own country name, whether you agree or not.